Hey, so I got a bunch of work done on this import to the data warehouse, so we'll go over some things here. I should get all this code up tonight, so it'll be available Saturday. Anyway, go to CIS, admin, home, and let's go to export. We'll select a TX activity export. So I'm just going to export the activity codes using a really old data set, so we'll go ahead and flip back to January of 2024. And then let's see, let's just grab the first quarter of that year. So March, into March. So then hit export CSV. So this is gonna export the file from KeyNotes, drop it on our local hard drive, right? So we'll grab this folder over here. So you can see that now we have this folder here, right? And we have the access database that you've been using for a data warehouse. So you'll see I've added a whole bunch of objects here, and I'll explain what those mean here shortly. The first thing we're going to want to do is go to external data, right? So we're going to import that file, and so you'll see this now has a saved import inside of it, and so you can use this KeyNotes activity import CSV, right, which is a job to bring that into the right table. So we'll come back down here, and this was the most recent export we did right before this demo. And so we're going to right click and we're going to say copy as path, okay? And so we're going to get the path to that document on the local computer. And then we're going to drop that just right in here in this box, and we're going to clean up the double quotes out of here. And so what that's going to do is that's going to point to our new export file, right? And then from here, we're just going to make sure that row's highlighted. We're going to hit run, right? But before we do that, let's double check something. So as it was, I already had data in this. So that import is going to import the data into this KeyNotes activity import table, which is this table right here. So we already have a bunch of stuff in there. So we're going to go ahead and delete that. And it's going to grind for a minute. And I won't be able to undo it because there's a lot of stuff there. And so we're going to go ahead and hit yes to this. Okay, so now we're going to go back to our saved imports. We've already fixed the path to the new document that we created. And we're going to go ahead and hit run. And it's going to say all the objects were imported successfully. So now we're going to go ahead and refresh this table. So we'll close it and we'll reopen it. And now you should see, so this is the export from KeyNotes. There'll be a problem down the road that we'll talk about. It's with this men's group having the apostrophe. I haven't quite figured that out yet, or if we just simply want to rename that group. Either way, so now we have the KeyNotes activities imported. The next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to transform those so that they match the TX activity that you're using for your longer data research, right? So then from there, and there's a few things to note. So this merge routine, the reason I split that out to be something different is we can come in here and we can run the preview, right? The preview is going to show us what data came in. So this was the import data, and this was the activity type. And you'll see how it says lookup failed. So if we go to the activity type transformation up here, right, so that the other table, you'll see that we have these mappings. So IP assessment equals one assessment in the data warehouse. These blanks, I didn't know what to do or what to import with where, right? And so this list is going to need a little bit of work and possibly could need some ongoing maintenance as things change, right? Which is one of the reasons why I chose to build this inside the Access database. I feel like if we built it inside KeyNotes, there'd be a constant engagement and re-engagement of paying me to maintain this export. So it's probably best that this sits in Access, and we use those lookup tables to transform that data for what we need in the research data. So we're going to go ahead and we'll close out of this. And so we'll say these lookups failed for now. We're going to ignore this just because we're going through the demo, and I know we've got more we need to set up. If we buzz through this table, you'll see that the assessments are lining up with assessments, and so on. Assessment 3, so a group session for 2 hours. So most of that's lining up, and you'll see this goes all the way across. So the participant import was a 0, 1, or a 3, and then we map those or transform those to NA, on time, no contact, no show. And again, you're going to see each one of those are in these side tables under here that start with an underscore. So we can adjust those if needed. let's see, where were we in this process? So we had the import done, right? So we imported the data, but we haven't transformed it yet to match that. So at this point, what we'll do is we'll come run this query, and if you double click the plus, it's probably going to grind for a second, and it's going to say, hey, you're about to append this into this transform table, and we're going to tell it, yes, we want to do that. It may come back and tell us how many records it's going to do. It may not, depending on the size. And it's going to tell us that we have 2,728 records for our data import, so we're going to go ahead and hit yes to that. It's going to tell us that we had 86 nulls. I'm not exactly sure what those are. Would have to sift through that data set to find those. And we're going to go ahead and hit yes. And now if we come over here to our transform, we need to close it because refresh doesn't work well. So now you can see that we've got it transformed, right? Now the next step from here is going to be to do the transform run. The transform run is actually going to put it into the TX activity table. I've tested this offline. I can do it right now, but I'm going to upload this database to you guys right now so you can actually see what we've got so far. So at this point, I'm not going to run that transform run. It'll merge it, and then I just got to go highlight 2,700 records and delete them. I don't want to have to do that. But now at this point, this will insert all that data into that last table, and it will merge with your research stuff. So let's assume then that we finished this first quarter of 2024, and now we're doing the second quarter of 2024. If you're going to re-import that data, you're going to need to come in here, and we're going to need to clean up this table, which I did before the demo started. And then we're also going to want to come into the transform, and we're also going to want to clean up this transform data, or else we'll end up importing the data twice. So probably the first thing you should do before you ever do an import is make sure that the import and transform tables here and here are clear or clean. And so with all that, I think the next couple of imports that we talked about for the toxicology table and the raw demographics, I think I'm going to design them the same way. If you guys are good with that, that puts it in a space that I know Scott's really familiar with Access, so he should be able to maintain this into the future without relying on me too much. So yeah, that's going to be my first pass. So you can see here's the import provider table. So you can see where we just said wildcards, anything starts with Scott Redding, goes to Scott Redding 1, Ashley Floyd to here. Annette, I didn't see her anywhere, or Emily. You'll see the same thing. So again, if we want to flip through these transform tables, here's a telemediate. Basically, in telemedicine, if it starts with TM, I assume it's telemedicine. If it doesn't start with TM, we're just going to assume it's a no. And then the provider we just talked about, and then participate. So you can see where we only map some of these because we don't have all of these options in KeyNotes for attendance. So we mapped the best we could. And then I don't know, we could have the conversation about what we want to do if they're not mapped and how we want to declare them. And I'll get to that here in just a second. So then as far as attendance goes, we were pretty good at mapping attendance. So one meant they were present, everything else assumed was absent. So that one worked pretty good. And then these need a bunch of help. This is kind of what I was alluding to. I'll upload another colorful diagram that shows kind of how I did this mapping. I don't know what to do for peer support 15 minutes and these, but we can create multiple mappings. For example, let's see, the family thing, right? There's a for family with client. So I mapped it to the in-person, and then you can also map it even further to the tele family session with, right? So you can have multiple mappings to the same code. That's kind of how we wrote that. So hopefully that'll help us shape the data to get it into the research system. Yeah, so kind of a longer demo than most, but if you have any other questions, let me know. And oh wait, before we get going too long, so the merge script right now, and we can make this call. So we go back over to, I trunked that table. There was a bunch of these merge scripts that would say -- linked whatever failed. We can exclude those if we just want to blanket exclude them, or we can try to figure out what's wrong with them and fix them, however that looks. But that's kind of the last step. And then I think as far as activities go, we'll have that entire import routine working real nice. So if you got any questions, let me know.